prophets and the visionaries and Emmanuel to come. In Greek, the word apocalypse does not exclusively convey the meaning of end times, though. Rather, it conveyed the meaning of a revelation or an unfolding of secret truths brought to light, and only brought to light in the unveiling. It is related to another Greek theological or philosophical term, aletheia, which means disclosure or truth as unhiddenness. I understand it as truth in the unpeeling of an onion. So when we think of apocalyptic language or end times language, we can understand God's plan for humanity with a present, future, and ending point juxtaposed altogether. Confusing? Yes. Advent invites us to live between the times, remembering the history of salvation and Jesus' presence with us at this table, and at the same time, paradoxically waiting with anticipation for the incarnation of Christ into the world and the perfection of the beloved community in both present and future time. Likewise, the term prophet or prophecy has interesting roots. It means generally one who speaks on behalf of a deity or a person that is capable of forecasting future events, but also one who could speak of the past and the present. Our prophets today, both Isaiah and Matthew, we believe spoke of both to implore us to make a profound correction in our present time. Our prophetic and poetic or apocalyptic spiritual leaders often shake our world. We have little desire, truly, to leave our comfortable spaces, our comfortable homes or churches or coffee shops, to roam around the dark streets of the rougher parts of our cities. Prophetic artists and poets can force us to look at those dark places we would otherwise not willfully encounter. Now, as an aging hippie, I often read Bob Dylan as our contemporary Isaiah, or Jeremiah perhaps. Consider these images from A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall in the context of today's news cycle. And what did you see, my blue-eyed son? I saw a newborn baby with wild wolves all around it. I saw a highway of diamonds with nobody on it. I saw a black branch with blood that kept dripping. And I saw a room full of men with their hammers bleeding. My favorite. I saw 10,000 talkers whose tongues were all broken. I saw guns and sharp swords in the hands of young children. So we can say that Isaiah's passage this morning clearly inspired Martin Luther King's mountaintop speech. You know the one. I have been to the mountain. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. Not so different than Isaiah's, "Come, let us go to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths." Isaiah is dreaming, of course, and prophesying hope of a future time, not yet, but soon, where Jerusalem, that city on the hill, will be a center of faithfulness and justice and righteousness, and will draw the peoples of the world to its comfort, where swords or handguns or AK-47s will no longer be needed, and war, violence, and discrimination will no longer be studied. Isaiah says that he shall judge between the nations and shall arbitrate for many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares. And this beloved community will not only learn about the peace of God, but will make it daily practice in every aspect of their ordinary lives. Marshall Gans, community organizer and professor at the Kennedy School of Government, shares the following. Our stories not only teach us how to act, they inspire us to act. Our stories communicate our values through the language of our hearts, our emotions, and it is what we feel, our hopes and our cares and our obligations, not simply what we know, but what can inspire us with the courage to act. And he writes further that these stories are stories of now. They are urgent. They require dropping the other things in our lives and to pay attention. They are rooted in the values that we celebrate in our stories. And it is the contradictions to these stories, to these values, that require action from us now. Or as Matthew writes, therefore you must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. Keep awake, for you do not know what day your Lord is coming. Now Matthew, we understand, was writing to a community who were frustrated that Jesus had not returned to them to assist in overthrowing the empire. There are, of course, many in the Christian tradition to this day that also are waiting for Jesus' return. We Anglicans, on the other hand, among many others, understand that Jesus is here. Jesus is present with us and in us and challenging us to become co-workers in the creation of the beloved community, that reign of heaven that we yearn for. Matthew, without equivocation, is sharing his impatience, and I suspect God's as well. Now is the acceptable time, he is saying to us. Carpe diem, or my favorite, get busy, Jesus is coming. So, do you share the value that we are all created in God's image and are called to care for each other as we would for Jesus? I believe you are. Does our response to the level of poverty in our world, the level of violence in our world, meet this standard? If not, what are we going to do about it? Get busy. Jesus is coming. And I ask you and myself, am I doing everything I can to protect the immigrant and release the captive children? Am I doing everything I can to provide a healthy planet for my great-great-grandchildren? Am I doing everything I can to provide food and clothing and shelter and health care and education for every human on the planet? Am I doing everything I can to beat my weapons into plowshares? Advent is about looking to the mountaintop, to the eternal moment of the perfect creation of that beloved community. We hopefully recognize that we are not the designers or the architects or even the contractors. We work to create a future that is not our own. We are simply workers. We plant seeds that we will never see harvested. We are called to recover an understanding that this is a focus of Advent. It is not a season so much for the preparation of the Incarnation, the celebration of Christmas, but a season that sets the context for the entire liturgical year, that incubates us, that allows us new birth and keeps us grounded, preventing us from an experience of a repetitive spin cycle that we can quickly skip to Christmas. As Meister Eckhart wrote, we are called to be both mother and midwife to God among us. We give birth to the Christ in our time, in our person, and in our work. Vita Scudder, a churchwoman of 100 years ago, wrote, at Cambridge, Christians' experience is revealed as a living and dynamic thing. It is based on historic fact and dogma. Our questions are shown not to be a massive abstract assumption, but torn out of our life experience. They are a transcript of realities encountered by our souls and our longing. I fully recognize that the overwhelming power of commerce and empire leaves us little time for reflection, for discernment, and to learn his ways that we may walk in his path. Some have already survived the perils of Black Friday. The church honestly has little defense against all of this. What has become a global culture of Christmas overshadows Advent before it even starts. You might consider an Advent conspiracy: to worship fully, to spend less, to give more, and to love all. You can learn more about this at this 10-year-old project at adventconspiracy.org if you're interested. Advent calls us to enter the cycle of each year with going deeper and wider into a full participation of God's mission. With meaningful horizons and higher expectations, we will be encouraged to look toward a future hope that is not a rapture or an end time, a reality perhaps that Bob Dylan illustrates, but a vision that Isaiah paints for us with an urgency that Matthew reminds us of. Perhaps it is a future hope as we listen to the words of Handel's Messiah. The kingdoms of this world have become the kingdom of God and of Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. And closing with Martin Luther King, with this faith, with this future, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony. Amen.